Hey, what's up, everybody? I've got a fun one today. I'm excited to bring on JT with JT Sports to talk about this Packers versus Eagles playoff game, which should be a very exciting matchup. And JT, he's got a great YouTube channel talking NFL, college. You guys should definitely check out his channel. I'll leave it linked near the top of the description. But I've seen his channel for 4 or 5 years, and we've gone back and forth for a little while. So I wanted to bring him on because I really enjoy his thoughts on different NFL topics. So should be a fun one. But JT, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. I just want to say I can't reiterate how grateful I am to have this opportunity to talk this playoff game between the Eagles and Packers with you, man. Like, I've been watching you for a while too, and I kind of love the Packers as well. Like, I'm a Steelers fan at my core, but if I had like a second or third team, y'all probably would be one of those two. So I'm very grateful to be on here, man.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. It should be fun. So this should be, this is going to be an interesting game. And I think the way the Packers ended off has got some people out there doubting the Packers, which I can see why there's some doubt there in the air. But to start off, do you think that Jordan Love can expose the Eagles defense in this one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was rewatching the week one matchup between you guys, and of course, both of you guys are playing way better football now than what you were then. But the thing with Jordan Love is that, you paid him $55 million a year, tied for the highest paid quarterback in the game. And it's like the consistency that you expect from somebody making that kind of money hasn't been there. And over the last 7 games, you see that he hasn't thrown a single interception, which is good. But sometimes, during the games, he can get a little bit streaky. His footwork can get a little bit off at times, and he can kind of miss the layups. But when it comes to making, like, big-time throws downfield, I believe that's where he excels at the most. And in the last game, he had a great throw to Jaden Reed. And the Philadelphia Eagles, for as good as their defense has been, they do have the tendency to get beat down the field vertically. And with how good the offensive line is, I know that you just lost Christian Watson, but that's the good thing about the Packers. You have so much depth. Yeah, you don't have a lot of household names, but you got a lot of guys who are good enough to get the job done. So with everything that you have in the passing game surrounding Jordan Love, I definitely expect him to have a really good game. And there really haven't been any games, in spite of how good of an opposing defense the Packers have played, where this offense hasn't really done anything. You went toe-to-toe with Detroit. You had a close game with the Minnesota Vikings. So if you can go toe-to-toe with what I think could be the potential NFC Conference Championship matchup, you can definitely go toe-to-toe with Philadelphia. This is a team that does look pretty stacked, but they do have some weaknesses that can be exploited. And I think being able to get those deep shots downfield when you get the play-action passing game going is how Jordan Love can make a killing in this game.
Yeah, no, I agree there with lots of what you had to say. And I do think that's sort of the thing for me heading into this one is we have seen inconsistency at times from the Packers offense. And there's no doubt that Jordan Love, has that ability to really, take over games. But there has been at times, some inconsistency, some accuracy problems. I think that was part of the issue against the Vikings and against the Bears before, Jordan Love went down. But even though you brought up hasn't thrown a lot of picks from weeks 11 through 18, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. So he's been pretty efficient. And I think, looking at the past 2 games, it definitely has made some people doubt the Packers. But I don't think we can just look at those games just because I think that we could see the Packers offense show up that before those 2 games, they put up 30 points in 5 straight games. So I don't think that they just have completely lost their ability to put up points. I still think they can. And even in the Vikings game, as you sort of had brought up, they got close in that one near the end, still put up 25. So even though people were doubting the Packers after that one, which, they started very terribly in that one, they still almost came back to win. So it was still a close game. So that's why I still think that the question is, what kind of Packers offense is going to show up against the Eagles. And they do have one of the best secondaries, I would say, one of the best defenses in the league. So it definitely will be a battle. But from weeks 11 to 18, Jordan Love, 4th highest passer rating. He's also 4th highest in EPA per play. So it's not like Jordan Love has just, fallen off a cliff completely. He's still, I'd say, a top quarterback. But I do think in this one, we just need to see him let it loose a little bit more. I think that because of all the picks he threw early on in the year, it felt like to me that he definitely was trying to work on those interceptions and not throw them. And I think that that's obviously good. You don't want your quarterback throwing a ton of picks. But I think at times and early in games, it looks like he's just trying to play it safe. And I think thinking a little too much. And I think when we see him down 2 scores, it's like a different quarterback comes out and he's like firing. He's loose. He has nothing to lose at that point. And so I do sort of feel that we're going to see that kind of Jordan Love in this one just because 7th seed, everyone's sleeping on the Packers right now. Same thing as last year against the Cowboys. It's a little different because they ended better last season. But I think Jordan Love likes to be in those spots where people are like down on him. And I think that we're going to see that, second half down by 2 scores, Jordan Love from the start. So that's sort of what I'm expecting. So it should be interesting there. So, sort of sticking with the Packers and their offense, we've touched on it a little bit, but what else do you think the Packers need to do offensively as well with Jordan Love to, be able to win this game?
The last time you guys played Philadelphia, you went 1-4 in the red zone, and it really irritated me because you forced 2 turnovers early in that game, and you only get field goals out of them. The name of the game is being able to punch the ball in the end zone. You got to be able to get 6 once you get inside the 20. You're going to have a difficult time beating this Eagles team this go around because, like you're not going to have the mishaps that comes with playing the first game of the season anymore. Both of these teams are seasoned. They don't really make a lot of self-inflicted errors. So for the Green Bay Packers, when you do get inside the 20 against this defense, you got to take advantage of it because even if you do have one of your better games, it still is going to be tough sledding for the majority of the afternoon against this squad. But Josh Jacobs has been a phenomenal this year. I mean, he's been fantastic, and that's been partially the reason why Jordan Love, I think he hasn't been going super gunslinger on us because with how good Josh Jacobs has been, it seems like LaFleur has leaned into him a lot. And I would say he pretty much is the focal point of this offense. When you get Josh Jacobs going, he's running guys over. He's stiff-arming guys to the ground. He's looking like Marshawn Lynch reincarnated. That's really when this offense is flowing because then you can get the play-action passing game going. Then that's when we get to see those deep shots to Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed. As long as you can find ways to capitalize in the red zone, you got a very good chance at being able to win this game. So for me, with how well coached this unit is, remember, people don't give LaFleur enough credit for how good of a job he's done with this team because when Jordan Love had to miss a few games with an injury and Malik Willis was coming in there, everybody's like, oh, Lord, there goes the season. And all of a sudden, Malik Willis looks like, holy cow, a competent starting quarterback on LaFleur. He changed the offense around. So let's give LaFleur some credit in this game. And to be honest with you, I feel like LaFleur has a huge advantage when it comes to the coaching side of this game because Nick Sirianni, I like Nick Sirianni. I think he's a little bit overhated. He wins, but he does have a tendency to, be a little bit too overly aggressive. He can mismanage the game in certain areas. When it comes to LaFleur, I feel like you're going to have a great game plan offensively. He's going up against Vic Fangio. Definitely going to be a tough matchup. But, the Packers are in really good hands with all the pieces you guys have at receiver, Josh Jacobs dominating, and even your backup running back is pretty good as well. So, I mean, shoot, I'll be really surprised if we see Green Bay's offense, struggle in this game. Anything less than 17 points in this matchup would shock me.
Yeah, no, you make a ton of great points there, and definitely, Josh Jacobs, he's been dominating all season long. Great signing there. And I think, with moving on from Aaron Jones, at the moment that was shocking when that happened. And for an hour, it seemed as if the Packers were going to have Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones. And that would have been interesting. But, Josh Jacobs has dominated this season. And I think especially in the second half of the season, LaFleur has really focused a ton on the run game. I think just because at times Love can be, inconsistent with his accuracy. And so we did see a ton of picks early on in the season. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's the end of the world as long as he's not throwing 2 or 3, just because he is sort of that gunslinger and when he sort of lets loose. But, in this game, if the Eagles defense does have a weakness, which I don't know if you could call it a weakness, but their rushing defense is 10th in rush yards per game allowed, 9th in rush yards per play, which is still obviously really good, but their passing offense, fewest pass yards allowed, fewest pass yards per play. So their rushing, defense would be the weakness compared to their secondary. So considering the Packers have found a ton of success on the ground all year, I expect them to try to, get it going early. But I also feel like, LaFleur can't be too focused on the run, that he can't, allow Jordan Love to really go out there and, try to make some big plays. And not that he doesn't, but I just think the Packers need to be more aggressive. And, if Love throws a pick or two, you don't want it to happen, but I don't think Love needs to go out there playing safe football. I think this is a game where he really needs to just let loose, like I think he was more early in the season. And I think that's going to be a big thing here just because of how good the Eagles' offense is. And so we'll get into that in a second. But, and you make up a great point too. There's been a ton of talk, just like looking at my comments. There's some people who want Matt LaFleur fired, but I just think that would be crazy. I mean, that'd be crazy.
People want Matt LaFleur
we don't even need to talk about it
fired?
much. I mean, there's every opinion out there at all times. So, but he is he's 13th in winning percentage all time, like 67-32. So, every coach is going to make some mistakes here and there, and people are getting on to him a little bit about his, timeout usage last game, things like that. But I'm honestly not concerned. I think that it's easy at times to put things on a coach, but I don't whatsoever. I mean, I don't know if there are many other coaches I would want over Matt LaFleur. And I think one of the biggest things for the Packers offense is playing clean football, because part of the reasons they lost to the Vikings and against the Bears, looking at that Vikings game, they were moving the ball fine first drive. Josh Jacobs fumbles it. They had like a 3rd and 1. They convert it, and then there was legal formation. Bring it back 5. They go punt it on 4th down. And Love started off a little shaky in that one as well, just accuracy-wise. So they just need to play clean football. And I think if they come into this game, don't start off sloppily, I think that they can, have a legit chance here. And, I think that people aren't giving them quite the respect just because of their past 2 games. And I think they're going to turn it around here. So it should be interesting. But I like how you brought up Malik Willis, because from what I've seen from Malik Willis this year, he's looked pretty solid. I really do think even with Malik Willis, the Packers offense would be pretty effective, because his accuracy has been pretty on point. He also has that running ability. Jordan Love does, but it seems the Packers are more willing to run with Malik Willis because he's more of a runner. Love can escape, but he doesn't really like to run the ball much. So Malik has been, and that shows Matt LaFleur's, ability to bring in a guy who is who hadn't really found success earlier and then come into Green Bay right away. It's like, look at that. I mean, that was a great job there by Malik Willis. All right, so now, moving to the other side of the ball, Jalen Hurts, the talk right now, he's had, I think it's like 4 pass attempts in the past month. I think it'll be, only 12 snaps from the last time he played till this game. So, do you think there could be some kind of rust factor, or what are your thoughts around that?
I have a hard time seeing Jalen Hurts coming out in this game flat, only because they have so many weapons around him. I mean, it's hard to struggle when you're throwing the A.J. Brown, Buff Batman is what they call him, Devonta Smith. You got Saquon Barkley, like, doing backwards hurdles and jukes over folks. So there's a lot of pieces around Jalen Hurts where they can ease him into this game. And to be honest, I kind of feel like the Eagles and the Packers, the way they are built offensively, are pretty similar. Because when the Packers are at their best, they're dominating the TOP battle, time possession. Both the Eagles and both the Philadelphia Eagles and the Packers have had a lot of games where when the offense gets clicking, they're having like 11 to 13 play drives for 6-7 minutes. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, with Jalen Hurts now back, you're going to have a more efficient passing attack, because when they had Kenny Pickett in there, it's like they had a little bit of success. They were better than what you expected, but, you could still obviously tell the difference between them having Jalen and not having Jalen. So with Saquon Barkley there, I feel like they'll probably lean on him early into this game, and then that's when they'll start to open things up. But the Eagles are not really a team like Green Bay that really puts the ball in the air a lot. There's a good amount of games that the Eagles have won where Jalen Hurts has only had, like, from a stat standpoint, not really that impressive of a showing. He'll have games when he's like 12 of 18, 110 passing yards, maybe a touchdown or two. So really, this is an offense predicated on ball control. Now, if, let's say, the Packers come out early and Jeff Hafley's like, we're finna go all in on stopping Saquon. We're just about to stack the box. We're going to make sure that Saquon doesn't beat us like how he did in week 1 when he had that hat trick. And if that happens and you force Philadelphia to have to throw it early, and let's say Jalen Hurts does make a couple of mistakes like he did in week 1, then this game kind of votes well in the Packers' favor.
Yeah, no, I think there's great points there. And yeah, it's hard to know, with a player missing 3 weeks, because I could sort of see it either way. On the one hand, maybe you'd probably rather him be playing great recently just because, just sort of that consistency. And, but on the other hand, he could have, he's probably fresher in other ways besides the concussion. I saw that they just cleared him officially, like right before he came on here. So it looks like he should be good to go. But, you do wonder the first 2 drives, will he be, quite on as he has been early on? I think it could go either way, to be honest. So that could be something just to watch early on to see if he's in rhythm or if it takes a couple drives. And I think that, especially if you're the Packers, if you can, get them making a few mistakes really early on, then, at that point, that's where it gets interesting when you're a team, a playoff team, like last year with the Cowboys, where, they were expected to win in that one, and then they come in right away, and Packers put up a ton of points, and then it's almost like the air was sucked out of the stadium. So I think that definitely, will be something to watch. And I think that when you look at Jalen Hurts this season, as you said, the Eagles and Packers, both of them have been, very focused on the run, on the rushing attack. And, because of that, it allows Jalen Hurts to sort of sit back there, and, he's really good at making great decisions. He's, when you look at completion percentage over expected, he's the highest in the NFL at 6.6%. So he's a pretty accurate quarterback, 18 touchdowns and 5 interceptions this year, but they are dead last in pass attempts. So, because they can run the ball so effectively, it's like you don't need Jalen Hurts to come in there and just, dominate and put the team on his back when it comes to a passing perspective. But as you said, if they can, they're going to try to contain Saquon Barkley, but I don't expect even the best defenses to just shut down Saquon Barkley. So my thing here is, can you just make sure that he doesn't, single-handedly lose you the game where he runs for like 160 yards? And I think in past years, I would be more concerned with this Packers rushing defense, because for years they were like bottom 5, bottom 10, and this would be a game where you go, oh no, he's probably going to run for 200 yards, and I don't know how we're going to, contain him. But this Packers defense so far this year, they've been a lot better against the run. One of the first times in a long time. When you look at the Packers rush defense, 7th in rush yards allowed per game, 3rd in rush yards per play allowed. So I'm just hoping, just hold him to 100 yards. Most guys, that's a big day, but for Saquon, it's like, okay, he didn't destroy us. So, that's would be something to watch there. So, looking at the Packers defense in this one, sort of on the same topic, do you think the Packers defense can do enough versus this Eagles team?
I was really disappointed when it came out that Jair Alexander has been ruled out for the year. I was like, man, that's a huge blow, because he had a big role in that game, week 1 being closed. Yeah, A.J. Brown had a few plays on him, but he also had a big interception. He almost had another one late in that game as well. And now you're asking yourself, okay, who's going to step up at corner? Is it going to be Eric Stokes? Is it going to be Corey Valentine? Somebody's going to have to be able to step up and guard this freak of a wide receiver, because he's like DK Metcalf, but a lot more polished, especially with what he's able to do after the catch as well. Makes him like a running back at receiver. And then with Devonta Smith, he can be a handful as well. So there's just so many weapons that if you're Green Bay's defense, if you can keep Philly to 24, 20 points, I think that would be a win. Ultimately, I feel like for Green Bay, you got to be able to get a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts. That's probably going to involve Jeff Hafley sending extra guys, because one thing about Jalen is that he's a really good instinctual player. He just has a good feel for the game. And with this scrambling ability, it's not like he just runs to run. He's run to find guys open in the passing game. So when you got somebody this dynamic as what Jalen Hurts is, it's just so hard as a defensive coordinator to really lock in on anything. And just Philadelphia in general, it's like, how do you stop them? With everything that they have, they got a top 5 offensive line. They got a top 5 group of receivers. You got Saquon Barkley in the backfield. It's kind of pick your poison. Like, to me, Green Bay's defense has to get stops in the crucial moments of this game. It doesn't really matter how they play the first 3 quarters. Where it matters is how they play the final 15. Can you get a big stop, or 2 with 5 minutes left to get the ball back to your offense? This is going to be a game that's going to be predicated off whose offense can make more plays late during this matchup, like it was in the last game when these two teams matched up in that international meeting. So for me, I think the Packers defensively, they could struggle, but the same thing probably could be said with Philadelphia. It really is going to depend on, can you be good situationally? Like, can you hold them to 3 points in the red zone? Could you come away with a big takeaway if they're able to drive down the field as well? Because one thing that does vote well for the Packers defensively is that since the Eagles are a ball control offense and they want to take a lot of time off the clock, if they're not coming away with touchdowns or they come away with empty possessions, then that's a huge disadvantage to them. So they really have to maximize every time they touch the ball. So I think for Green Bay, if their defense can play well in the fourth quarter, I think that's what can win this game for them, because this really is a tough offense to stop, man. It really is hard to find any area that they struggle in. I'll say maybe if you can make Jalen Hurts a drop back passer, not saying he's not a good passer, but looking at the fact they don't throw the football as much, it does kind of make them a little bit uncomfortable. Are they confident that they can win a game where Jalen Hurts has to throw it 30-plus times? Because he hasn't really done it that much this season.
Right. I feel the same way as you when it comes to the Packers defense here, because, I mean, when you have an offense that's so talented, it's hard to just, shut them down. And so that's where I feel more like the pressure could be on the Packers offense, because I do feel like Philly will probably put up, I'm hoping they put up about 24 points and the Packers put up 27 or 30, because I think that's what the Packers offense is going to need in this one. And I feel like if you're looking at the Packers defense, I would say, okay, if you can hold them to 24, that's not like great, but like I think considering the circumstance and the offense you're playing, I think you take that as a win and say, okay, you got to rely on the Packers offense to, get that extra 3 points, get that extra touchdown, whatever it is. And so, when you look at the Eagles rushing attack, it's so dominant. I do like the fact that Edgerrin Cooper, Packers rookie running back, he's been dominating. He just got rookie of the month, or one of the rookies of the month. He played like 11 snaps week 1, but he just, when it comes to run defense recently, he's just been flying around, coming through those holes and, just really, playing great run defense. So I'm excited to see what he can do here. I think that he's going to be important in this one in a big way. And
I think another
when you look at,
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I had to.
Oh, you're good. Go ahead.
The Packers linebackers got to play well in this game, because in week 1, Saquon Barkley, not only did he eat you alive on the ground, missed tackles were part of that, but also anytime that he was a factor in the pass game coming out of the backfield, the Packers linebackers in coverage against Saquon definitely was something that the Eagles were feasting on, especially when they got that touchdown when they threw it to him in the red zone. And I definitely feel like that's going to be a huge matchup that they're going to try to exploit, trying to get those Packers linebackers isolated out wide, 1-on-1 against Saquon Barkley. So I think for Green Bay, you definitely are going to have a game plan for Saquon whenever he does flank out wide, because that's definitely going to be a problem for them if they can't find a way to game plan for it.
Yeah, no, totally. I know, I agree. That's a great point. And you brought up earlier as well the, really trying to, get the pass rush going, and maybe if you can contain Saquon a little, making, Jalen more of a drop back passer. And when you look at his passer rating versus in a clean pocket versus pressure, he's third in passer rating when kept clean, and then 18th when under pressure. And that's per PFF with quarterbacks with 25 dropbacks. So he's definitely, most quarterbacks are better, clearly, when they're kept clean. But, third versus 18th, there's a lot of guys better than him when under pressure. He's more of an average type guy in that situation. And early on in the year, the Packers' pass rush wasn't very good. Now, I wouldn't say they're, top tier, but they've gotten a lot better. Brenton Cox, who's an undrafted player, he's been playing great. He's 6th in the NFL in the past 6 weeks in pass rush win rate per PFF. So he's been really playing great football, and I think the Packers need to get him out there more. And so in week 1, the Packers were really focused on keeping Jalen Hurts in the pocket, not really allowing him to beat them with his legs. And they held him to 33 yards, 2.5 yards a carry. But they were okay to not really, crash in on the pocket because they were trying to contain. So I'm curious to see what they try here. Are they going to do that again and try to force him to beat them in the air, or are they going to, really try to go after him? Because without Jair, I don't know how comfortable I feel with him just dropping back without them really, going aggressively at him and trying to contain. I do think Carrington Valentine, Eric Stokes have played a lot better recently, but these are two of the best receivers in the league, and you can't expect to, keep them in check all day. And if you have 4 or 5 seconds trying to guard those guys, like, good luck. So I think the Packers, pass rush really has to come alive in this one. So now, sort of sticking with the quarterbacks, I was just curious, so I want to get this question in there, but who do you think is the better quarterback, Jalen Hurts or Jordan Love?
Man, I lean Jalen Hurts just because I feel Jordan Love, when he's playing his best football, he is the better QB, but Jalen's just more consistent week in, week out. You know what you're going to get for him. And even if he does have a couple of turnovers, he's cool, calm, and collected. He's pretty accurate. I don't see him have too many bad misses. With Jordan Love, it's just like some weeks he can just be a little bit all over the place. I kind of am a little bit disappointed with how Jordan Love has played this year, because I was expecting like an MVP level season, and all the hype that he got after the contract extension. He's like Rodgers and Favre put together. It's just with Jordan Love, I still want to see a little bit more consistency week in and week out. It's just for me, he just can be a little bit up and down as a player. So I just like Jalen Hurts a little bit more, just because I think he's the more consistent of the two quarterbacks. You can't go wrong with either one, but I just slightly lean Jalen, not by a huge margin. You feel me? I don't think the gap is wide at all. It's just that he's just more consistent than Jordan Love.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of those points. I personally would take Jordan Love. I think, looking at this season, in my mind, they're pretty similar. It's like hard. I don't think like you're crazy to pick Jalen Hurts. Like, how dare you pick Jalen Hurts over Jordan? I don't feel that way. Like, I totally see it. I think for me, you brought up his inconsistency, and I think with me, just in the long run, I feel like Jordan is still gonna, take some strides forward, being only in his second year starting. And, just that high-end play, I do think is better than Jalen Hurts' best play. And I just think in, 10, 15 years, when we look back at these two quarterbacks, that Jordan Love's going to be like the guy who I think in the long run people will take. That's just sort of my opinion. And so I'm not sure about this, but my theory partly is, as I brought up earlier with being down in second halves and how good he plays, I think just he needs to be completely let loose. And I know early on it was like, gosh, he's like Brett Favre, but it's like, that's not a negative thing. Sure, you don't want the picks, but Brett Favre, like multiple MVPs, Super Bowls, like, okay, be Brett Favre. So, I sort of want to see Jordan Love unleashed more, and I hope we see that in this game. But I think that if he can just play loose and free from the start, sure, you're going to have some more picks, but I think the first half of the season, I don't think he was even concerned about picks, because there was an interview early on, and people asked him, like, are you concerned about the picks you're throwing? And he's like, I'm going to keep putting it up there. And I sort of like that mentality a little bit. At the time, though, you're probably like, oh, can you just, like, be a little bit more precise in your decision-making, which I think he can be. But that's just sort of the reason I'm picking Love, because he can be inconsistent. He can be inaccurate at times. But I think the high end is so, like, elite that's why I would go with Jordan Love personally. But But yeah, that's sort of my thought. So now, what would you say, looking at both these teams, what would be your biggest concern for each team? And if they did lose, what would be the likely reason why?
For the Philadelphia Eagles, if they lose this game, it's going to be because of Nick Sirianni. I think that Matt LaFleur has the coaching advantage in this game because he's better situationally. Regardless of what Packers fans say, if you watch Nick Sirianni coach, I mean, against the Jacksonville Jaguars, he almost cost them that game because he's just going for it on 2-point tries just for no reason. You know, his fourth down decision making can be a little bit questionable as well. You know, for Philadelphia, he's probably the biggest talking point of this playoffs because if they end up losing this game, there's going to be some questions about if he even comes back next year. Because, you know, this is a team that does have Super Bowl caliber talent. They do expect to compete for a Super Bowl, and for them to go one and done with how well things have gone this season would bring up some very tough conversations with Nick Sirianni, you know, and even when they're winning, you know, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's getting into it with his coaching staff over Jalen Carter. You know, Nick Sirianni, I like him, but he can be a little bit, you know, Looney Tunes at times. He's arguing with the fans. You know, it's what Nick Sirianni is like. Can he keep a level head in this game? You know, when the pressure really starts to build, like, do you trust him to make the big decision? He really could cost Philly this game. And for Green Bay, really it's going to be Jordan Love because I believe Jordan Love has to play flawless football. And when you play a team like Philadelphia that's just stacked on both sides of the ball, like Philadelphia and Green Bay are similar teams. Like Green Bay doesn't really have a lot of glaring weaknesses, but Philadelphia just has more high-level talent than what Green Bay is. When you look at what they have at receiver, Green Bay has one of the best receiving cores in the NFL, top 5 in my opinion. They don't have an elite receiver, but you got a lot of good receivers to the point where Matt LaFleur, sometimes he doesn't know who he wants to get involved because it's so many to pick from. And defensively, you know, you got guys like Rashawn Gary, Devontae Wyatt. You know, you got McKinney, who leads the NFL in interceptions, if I'm not mistaken. But Philadelphia is like you got 2 great rookies, Dejean, Mitchell. You know, it's just so much high-end talent that the Eagles have compared to Green Bay that you really need Jordan Love to play the best game of the season. This has to be a game where he actually earns that $55 million a year paycheck because the margin of error for Green Bay in this game is a lot smaller than Philadelphia. Philadelphia, I think they could overcome a turnover or two. Green Bay, I don't really know. Just because of the way that Philadelphia is built, if you turn it over with 8 minutes to go in the second half, you may not get another opportunity until like 1 minute left. So Jordan Love, to me, if he struggles, that's how Green Bay loses this game. This really has to be near a perfect game for him if the Packers are going to be able to pull this win off. And I think that he's capable of being able to do it. That's why I'm taking Green Bay to win. You know, I trust Green Bay a lot more than I trust Philadelphia. And I know that Jordan Love is capable of stepping up in these big moments. Last year when we got into the playoffs, that's when he was playing his best football. If it wasn't for that mistake that he made in the closing seconds against the 49ers, we're talking about the Packers being in the NFC Championship. And at one point watching that game, you felt like not only were they going to be in the championship, but you asked yourself, is Jordan Love about to take these guys to the Super Bowl? You know, so it really has to be a great game out of Jordan Love. He needs to play the way in the playoffs this year like he did last season.
I think, you know, starting off with your Eagles point about, you know, Nick Sirianni and if they were to lose in the first round, that, like, when I'm looking at this game, I think, you know, which fan base would be like more upset. Obviously, both fan bases would be very upset, no doubt, losing in the playoffs in the first round. But because of how good the Eagles have been, it does feel like they have a little more to lose, especially with the way they went out last season. So that's why I feel like they have some pressure where if early on, like, they start off slow and the Packers are able to come up, you know, to a fast start, which they have struggled with in, you know, against better teams. But if that were to happen, I just think there could be a similar mood in just the stadium with the team like it was with the Cowboys, because I was at that game, and right before, no one really gave the Packers a chance, especially last year. And I just sort of had a feeling, I was like, this could be, something could happen here. And within, 14-0, and like everyone was dead silent in that stadium, all the Cowboys fans, and it felt like the Cowboys players were almost in shock, and like they just stopped playing how they did all season. So I think that there's a chance for like a similar kind of thing to happen, just if the Eagles get down early, because it's like, oh my gosh, we had a great season. What's going on? Like sort of chaos. Where the Packers, you don't want them to lose the last 2 games. I'd rather them be winning. But if they lose, it's like, oh yeah, they were bad the past 2 games. So I feel like that's why my thoughts with Jordan Love is that he's going to come out just like, who cares? Like, let's go win. And so I do think he needs to have a great game. But I think my biggest thing for the Packers, if they were to lose, I would think it's like they just don't play clean football. They, fumble the ball to start the game, or they were to, have silly penalties, things like that, which has sort of hurt them the past 2 games. And that's why I think in the Vikings game, if the Packers just didn't make silly mistakes, that would have been a much closer game than I feel like people don't even realize. Like early on, that could have been a much closer game. The Packers were moving the ball fine the first 4 or 5 plays against the Vikings defense. Josh Jacobs fumbles it, and it's just like right away things switch. So I think the Packers just can't have a moment like that early on. They need to start fast, and so that's with the Eagles. I think it's a similar thing. Just who starts fast. I mean, lots of games it's how what determines it. I think it could come down. I think it will come down to the wire. But there's a chance here, I think, for either team. It's like, oh no, what's going on? You never want that to happen early on in games. So to end off here, what would be your final score prediction in this one?
I like Green Bay. 31-27 is going to be my score prediction in this game, man. Like, it can go either way, and a lot of people are betting heavy on the Philadelphia Eagles, but I like Green Bay more. They don't got a lot of noise compared to Philadelphia. I trust LaFleur more than I trust Nick Sirianni. And I really believe this probably was the worst matchup for Philadelphia. If you had to handpick any team that you didn't want to see, it definitely was Green Bay, because Jordan Love has played well in, the biggest games of the season for Green Bay. It's not that, he ain't do enough. It's just that, down the stretch, the Packers offense kind of has phased out in the second half of games, like against Detroit, even though, Detroit went for it and they ended up, not even giving Jordan Love a chance. I don't trust Philadelphia to win those situations the same way Detroit was able to. I think that Nick Sirianni is going to give some opportunities for Green Bay to win this, and I think they're going to make them pay this time. So I like Green Bay to win.
Nice. I mean, that's almost identical to mine. I got Packers 30, Eagles 27. So just, 1 point off there from the Packers. So, yeah, I do feel that the Packers being underdogs does help them in this one, just because I think Jordan Love will play more loose, and we'll see if that happens in the first half. But I just think that the Packers offense is one of the elite offenses in the league. They did lose Christian Watson, but as you brought up as well, they have a very deep receiver room, and I think some of the guys are underrated just because they have so many good receivers that the ball gets spread around so much, where with the Eagles, they have some other good guys, but it's sort of, mostly that, A.J. Brown and, Devontae Smith. So I think Romeo Doubs, insanely underrated. He's one of the best route runners in the league, 3rd highest route win rate per fantasy points. So I just don't think he gets enough looks overall because of the other talent. So that's sort of why I still think this Packers offense has more to show, and I'm not thinking that what we saw against the Vikings and the Bears is necessarily the team that's going to show up here. Because if I did, I would be picking the Eagles because the way the Packers played the past 2 weeks, that's not enough to cut it. So just looking at the overall season, the games before that, I think that there's a better chance in a big game that we see that. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a close game. It could go either way. A few plays here or there at the end of the game. It just feels like these are 2 stacked teams, so it should be a really good one. But before we end it out, you have any other thoughts, any other things you wanted to add?
Nah, man, that's about it. I'm just looking forward to a really good game. Like I said, this could go either way. I'm not betting on this game. This is the only game that I didn't put on my parlay just because, I do like taking Green Bay plus 4.5, maybe 5, buying an extra point if it drops a little bit more. But, I think that both of these teams are more similar than what's being talked about. The only difference is that Philadelphia has more high-end talent than Green Bay. But in terms of, if we're talking about the most complete teams in the NFL, these two teams are in the mix. You got Philly and then you got Green Bay. A lot of people don't know about Rashawn Gary. They don't know about Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, but they know about A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. The Eagles have a lot of flash. You feel me? But the Green Bay Packers, though, they don't have that flash, but at the same time, they still have the ability to produce at the same level as what Philadelphia can, despite not having the big household names.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's one, too. Wicks, I mean, this could be a big game for him. He's really good at getting open. He's struggled with drops this year, but if he can, without Christian Watson, he's going to get some chances. And, he gets open. He has no problem getting open. He's open all the time. It's just, he has to catch those passes, but he could be someone to watch in this game as well. But
I think that whoever comes out of the NFC is going to come out of the NFC North, because I don't think the Packers are being talked about just because they've been overshadowed by the Lions and the Vikings. But this division has three of the best teams in this conference. They got great quarterbacks. They got great defenses. The Packers are top 10 in everything. Offense, defense. You feel me? Like, if you would have had Jeff Hafley coaching this defense last year, there's no way you can't convince me this team wouldn't be in the Super Bowl. Like, I really believe that the Packers are going to flip that switch. And, they play their best football come playoff time, because we seen it happen last year.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping so as a Packers fan. I think we can. I think we will. I think we'll see it. But JT, thanks for coming on today. I'm going to leave your YouTube at the top of the description. So if you guys, want to go hear his other takes around the NFL, different things like that, feel free to go check him out, subscribe as well. But JT, thanks for coming on, and should be a fun game to watch.
And I appreciate you having me on, man. It was a lot of fun talking about this matchup.
Yeah, it was. All right. See ya.